Here's a story from American history that's almost a parable. In 1898, the U.S. government began funneling tens of thousands of dollars into a project to create a flying machine. The project was run by Samuel Langley, the prestigious secretary of the Smithsonian Institution and an expert in the field of astronomy and aviation. On December 8, 1903, Langley's full-size piloted flying machine was brought out onto the Potomac River and launched from a gigantic floating catapult while the press and public looked on. It went up and it went right back down again, promptly crashed into the river, and Langley was heartily ridiculed in the press. Meanwhile, same time, out on a lonely stretch of land off North Carolina called Kitty Hawk, two brothers from Ohio named Orville and Wilbur Wright were getting ready to test their first flying machine. They were an odd pair. They never married. They never even left home. They ran a bicycle shop in Dayton to support themselves, but they had become obsessed with the idea of human flight. They took no money from the government, and as for the experts, when it occurred to them that all the greatest aviation experts who had gone before them were simply wrong in their calculations, they scrapped the experts and ran practical experiments in their bike shop until they understood how to build a flying machine that could be controlled by the man on board. Their first powered flight 8 days after the Langley crash lasted 12 seconds and covered 120 feet, which is about half the length of a 747 jet. All the same, it may have been the most profound advance in human civilization since Columbus stumbled on the New World. Just to add to this parable, the story of the Wrights' first flight, one of the greatest news stories of the century, was not broken by the mainstream media of the day. The big papers either ignored the story or ran accounts so unfactual as to make no practical difference. The guy who first told the true story of the Wrights was an odd little beekeeper named Amos Root, who published a trade journal called Gleanings in Bee Culture. No kidding. It was the early 20th century equivalent of a blog, and it was Root who first told the world what the Wrights had accomplished. Even so, when the brothers attempted to sell their invention to the U.S. government a few years later, they got a form rejection slip and had to go overseas to look for buyers. Now, it's easy to draw a moral here about the unwieldy incompetence of government and the dishonest gormlessness of the mainstream media. But my question is this. How do government and the media get to the point where stagnant lack of imagination rises off them like a kind of swamp gas? And how can we avoid sinking into that kind of chronic stupidity? Also, how much can we laugh at them before we hurt ourselves? Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.